Welcome back. This is creating the Sci-Fi Crate, the Sci-Fi Crate video 3. So we're going to go in here and show you how to kind of lay out the UVs for this. This is more of a complex object, so I know some of you guys will need some help on this. So we'll go ahead and get started. So how do you even get started with something like this? The key is to start with automatic mapping and then move in sew UVs or select UVs and do basic planar mapping. So I'm going to use all kinds of techniques that will help you understand how to lay out UVs more efficiently than just doing dice. You can watch the dice video several times, but this is going to be a little more complex, so we'll go ahead and show you how to do that. Alright, so we need to go to Windows and open up the UV editor. So that's the first thing. So right now the crate looks something like this, which is kind of strange. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and I'm going to show you some things in here. We got toggle shaded UV display on and off. Basically, when you toggle this in, it shows us anything that's red is flipped normals, or flipped UVs, and anything blue is normal. So we're good that way. I didn't expect that to be a problem, but if you do see red in here, you'll have to flip those. So there are ways of flipping UVs. We've got right here flip selected UVs in V and flip selected in U direction. So you can also rotate UVs clockwise and counterclockwise. I do this all the time. So when I right click over this, go to UVs, and I select something like this, and if I rotate them, you can see that they rotate. So if you need to do that, you can. Again, overlapping UVs looks like this. Anything that's dark blue means that you've overlapped those UVs. If you see red, you've got them flipped. Okay. So with that said, there's some other things in here you need to know. We got move and sew. We'll be using that a lot. So under polygons, you've got move and sew UV edges. So those things, that's very important. And then of course when we're done, we'll do a UV snapshot. Okay, so the first thing I do is I use my dual monitor, but unfortunately I can't with the video. So you can also go in here and do side by side. So I can select side by side and select a panel. I could do that. I'm just going to go this way. Move this over here like this and make this a little bit smaller so we can see that, and scroll in. There we go. So something like that looks good. Same exact thing as doing side by side panel, but alright, so let's go in here and select the box, and I'm going to hold down the space bar and go to UV, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do automatic mapping. What this does is that this basically unwraps everything as a planar map, all 6 sides. So it's like taking a shot of the front, top, sides, and back. So fewer pieces, and we'll just leave it as a default. Okay. So spacing presets, well, we're going to go at a 2048 by 2048. We really don't have anything bigger than that, so I'm just going to leave it at default. So if I go edit, reset settings, you can see that we're all good. Okay. So we're going to click on project. All right. So everything is now projected. It's basically flat. It makes no sense here. It doesn't do a good job, and you would never ever use this and pack this and call it finished, because it won't work. So don't ever do that. So when I say to unwrap or do an automatic map, the reason why I do this is it makes everything uniform as far as scale goes, to proportion to the scale of the object. So if I click on this checkerboard here, okay, when you see this, everything looks nice and even. There's a couple stretch parts in here, but we can fix all that. But normally, but the thing is that everything is uniform, and that's kind of what we want it to look like when we're all finished. Okay, so that's why I do automatic mapping. Okay, I know some of you think it's kind of strange, but this is what I do. This is how I do it. So, all right. So I'm going to click that off, And I'm going to right click over to UVs and select these UVs. And let's go ahead and go to UVs, and it should just click off here a minute. Go to selection, and we want to get back into UVs. So UVs, there we go, and select them. And what we're going to do is we're going to move these guys out. Okay, there we go. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select the faces, basically one by one. There's no fast way of doing it, and I'm just basically selecting what I think the camera can see from the front. Okay, and this is important because we only want to select things we can actually see from the front. Okay, and we're going to really concentrate on the large pieces here. Okay, so from the front view, what are we actually seeing here? And that's kind of what we're seeing. Okay, so that's what we kind of want to texture. Now, you could argue, well, we could see the side too. Well, that's true. You know, you could leave this piece by itself and planar map that. That's possible. That's fine. So a faster way of selecting these instead of one by one is this. Go into the side view, and you have to be kind of comfortable doing this. And I am. I've done it before. So I'm going to marquee select this, and then hold the control key down and deselect these parts right here. So I'm going to deselect this, and because I don't really need the angle there or the inside, let's go ahead and see what we got. So I'm going to deselect that. So when I go in here now, you can see my perspective. You can see that I selected the same thing I selected before, and that just takes time and patience, and just kind of knowing what you're doing. The only thing I don't want to select are the little inside pieces here. So let's go in there and figure out a way to deselect those. So I'm going to go in here and let's see here. It's a little more tricky. I'm going to deselect those, and then I'm going to hold the shift key and select this and select these. There we go. So let's see if that did it. There we go. So no underneath pieces. Okay, that looks really good. Awesome. Okay. So that looks fantastic. So I'm going to planar map that. Now, the only thing I don't want to make sure, I'm going to hit the wireframe to see if I got anything selected I don't need. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a planar map. So planar map in the x-axis. So that's what it's facing. Okay. So you can see all this stuff in here. So I'm going to go to UV. I'm going to go to planar map, planar, and into the option box. And we have a choice now of X, Y, and Z. So X is what we want, a bounding box, and click project. And there it is. The thing that what happens with this though is that it doesn't look like this. So if I go to the front view, this one right here, and hit the 5 key, we can see that the UVs do not match this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that out of there like that and move that around. Okay, and then I'm going to squish this. So I'm going to hit the R key on my keyboard, hit R, and then squish that down so it looks similar to this, and get it as close as you can. Just eyeball it. That's the best way to do it. Just eyeball it like that. There we go. That's good. Okay, so that's the first one. So do the other side. Move that down a little bit. There we go. Move that over a little bit. So there we go. So that fits in there. So now I'm going to do the back. So the same thing. Go to this side. I'm going to select all this right here. Shift select all of this right here like that. Go to my perspective, take a look at what we have here. And now I'm going to go in here and do another planar map. Same thing, UVs, planar, and we're facing the X, so project that. There it is. And we'll move this one out and up. It actually looks like the UVs are flipped, but we're going to go ahead and scale that down. I'm not exactly sure why, and I'm going to move this down like this over top of this other one to make sure my scale is right. And scale that down. Again, just kind of move it around in place so they kind of fit over top of each other. That's good enough. That's good. And then we want to flip these. For some reason they flip, so I'm going to flip. There we go. So that looks good. We'll flip those. So there's those UVs. The thing is, when you're texturing, this makes more sense, doesn't it? When we look at that, it looks like the side of the box. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, and this isn't really too many faces. I'm going to select this face and hold down the Shift key and select these faces. There's not much here to select. And we're going to do a planar map on that. And that is facing the Z. Now you may have something different. I think you got the same thing. So Z, we're facing the Z. So I'm going to go in here and go to UVs and go to planar mapping, and this time we're going to go to Z axes and project. And so we're going to go to the front here and hit the 5 key, kind of get an idea what that should look like. And I'm going to move this kind of up, okay, like that, and out of the way. And we're going to kind of try to get the proportions correct on that. So I'm going to move that, scale that in a little bit like that. And I'm going to move this down, and we want this to fit. So I'm going to scale that in so it kind of fits the width. Okay, because it's going to fit the width back here. So I'm going to scale that down a little bit more. Okay. And then we'll just move this over to the side on this side, like that. Okay, so we'll get the other side. There we go. Select that one. And because I'm using the same planar mapping, all I have to do, because if I re-invoke a tool, remember it's G, so I'm just going to do that, hit the G key, and I'm going to move that up, and this is turning red. I'm going to select the center here and move it to the center of this one, and go ahead and scale it down this way and scale it in to kind of match, right? And then move it up, try to get it centered again, and then scale it down this way so they both match. And they don't have to be perfect, just get it close. There we go, perfect. Well, it's not perfect, but it's good enough. And we'll move that up a little bit. There we go. And move it down. Okay, so this one's got to be flipped as well. So we'll do the same thing. We'll flip it around. There we go. And click off. Okay, so now it's starting to look like more of a UV map that we can actually use. Okay, and we have wherever we have a break, we're going to have a seam. So we're going to have a seam somewhere in here, which isn't great, but we'll see what we can do to fix that. Okay, so we got the sides. Now we got to do the top, and we got to do the bottom. So all we need to really worry about is selecting the very top here. And let's look at the perspective. Oh, we need to do a little more than that. So I'm going to go back to wireframe here real quick and select these guys right here. There we go. See how that looks. Okay. The only thing we need to not select is the inside pieces. So I'm going to deselect this one. This gets a little tricky here. I'm going to deselect that over there because we got the rest of it. And I don't want to get the inside bars, so that's facing the wrong axes. So let's go in here and see if I can do this carefully. I'm going to hold down the control key and do a marquee, really thin selection, marquee selection, and see if that worked. That's great. So I just got the top. Again, if you can't select the way I'm selecting, all you have to do is just select the top faces. Okay? Alright, so now we're going to hold down the space bar and go into UV and go to planar. And this time we're going to go in the Y direction and click on project. So now we're going to go to the top view, okay, like that. Hit the 5 key, and we're going to make the top look like this. So I'm going to hit the W key, move that up out of the way, and we just need to scale that down like that, so it's proportionate. Okay, there we go, perfect. And move it over, and we probably want to rotate that. There we go, so it kind of matches the top here. And I'm going to keep all this stuff proportionate. And so, like, if it was fitting on top, we'd want to scale that down a little bit more and kind of match it up. So we're going to match that up a little bit more. There we go. So that's the top. There we go. And then we're going to do the bottom. Okay, so that's the top, and then we'll work on the bottom here. I'm going to right click on face, okay, and do the same thing to the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to select these haphazardly, and hold down the control key, and deselect that one, and I'm going to do a really thin deselect on this one, holding down the control, and that should do it. Again, this just takes time to master that selection, being able to select things. And now I'm going to go in here, and I could hit the G key again, couldn't I? The G key? Nope, that didn't work. So it just remember what I did last time, like rotate. So I'm going to go in here, go to UVs, and planar mapping, and make sure Y direction is selected, and there it is. And I'm going to move it up. Again, scale it down. Okay, and then rotate. And then I have to flip it. There we go. And then I'm going to go to the bottom and move that to the bottom, like that. And scale it. Again, I only have a certain amount of time. I probably went way over and probably have to divide this video up, which is fine. And because I don't think I'm going to be able to get everything in the amount of time that I want. Scale this up a little bit more. That matches pretty good. Just double check and see if it matches. That's pretty close. And to do this, you can go to face mode, edge mode, whatever. I'm in face mode right now, and I'm going through face mode this way, kind of using tips and tricks and all that stuff. So I'm going to move that down. Okay. All right. So I'm zooming that out.